People like the outtakes.
People like the outtakes when you're funny.
You should start with me saying people like the outtakes.
And just never put an outtake in afterwards. But I was thinking of a good intro this morning. If you feel like you identify with Gen X and you hate being called a millennial, you just might be a Zennial. I don't know. It worked in my head. It worked in my head in the shower, and you didn't have a reaction. And I felt like it was bad.
No,
well, welcome to Generation Zennial, where we talk about things that we care about. And
maybe other people don't.
maybe
they do, maybe they don't. Who knows? We're here. We're talking. It's Friday.
I definitely think some of the things we're going to talk about today, people definitely care about.
Let's hope so.
Because, I know people care about it, at least in my Facebook feed, because...
At least when we get to WandaVision, people will care. People care about WandaVision.
People care about WandaVision.
We're going to talk about WandaVision again. So
at the end.
So that's going to be at the end. So stay tuned.
If you haven't watched it, if you haven't watched WandaVision, that's when you can tune out, because we don't want to spoil things for you. I hate spoilers, and I don't want to spoil it.
So go watch WandaVision now that you can binge watch it. You can binge WandaVision now.
Pause.
Finally binge it.
When we get to that point, just pause, go watch all 9 episodes, and then come back and listen to the end.
You have nothing else better to do. We know this.
It's digital technology. You can wait. You can listen to it later. It's fine. So, I mentioned you saw my post yesterday on Facebook where I was struggling with the fact that I gave up talking about politics on social media, and because there's so many things I just want to respond to. I mean, it's good for my soul because I can just scroll past it, be like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time. Like the whole, Dr. Seuss thing I scroll past, and I scroll past people being derogatory towards women, and but the hypocrisy with the Andrew Cuomo thing is killing me.
Yeah, and obviously I'm in New York, so I wasn't even sure if you were following the story, so I didn't know if you should bring it up or not. But
I have relatives that live in New York. I have extended family that lives in New York, so it's there. It's in the Facebook feed.
You're close to the border, and it's not like news doesn't spill over.
Right, and I know plenty of people that are from New York. It's not like it's another country or something. But it's killing me that you have a person in government. So whenever it's a Democrat, this is Andrew Cuomo, this is Al Franken, this is whatever, as soon as a woman comes and accuses them of anything sexual, it's they either step down, like Al Franken willingly stepped down on his own.
Yeah, the Al Franken thing, we can talk about that, but
that's a whole other issue.
That was a whole different story. That was just in the Me Too movement was just getting started. It was prominent in the headlines.
And I think if you look at the Al Franken thing,
I think it was a lot of bad timing, and it was a lot of falling on the sword for the Democratic Party.
He totally fell on the sword because when you look back at the circumstances,
what the date was, but I want to say it was around the presidential election of 2016.
I was a little bit before that, like maybe 2015.
But it was kind of like I said, it was kind of prominent in the news, and it was one of those things where Al Franken was like, I'm gonna fall on the sword. We're gonna show that Democrats can do the right thing, thinking that would sway people to be like, oh, they're taking things seriously. But we know that nobody really cares about this, especially the opposing party. They're really not gonna care what Al Franken does. It's not gonna affect their behavior.
Yeah, so you go to.
Yeah, let's talk about Cuomo. For those of you who don't know, Cuomo has been accused of some inappropriate
touching
Well, that's the latest. I wanted to go back to the beginning. I don't even know how to describe it.
It was more like
creepy behavior, basically.
It was old man creepy.
We know Cuomo can be a bit of a blowhard, a bit of a bully. He's definitely one of those old school politicians who wants to be tough and manage things like a.
Well, he's from New York, he's a New York guy,
Yeah, like I'm an old school guy. And,
hey,
yeah,
my dad was a governor. I'm a governor,
Right.
So we're getting bridges after us.
He's always had that kind of reputation. Recently, what happened? He got kind of slammed for the handling of the way he hid statistics from people dying in nursing homes from COVID in New York State to basically for political reasons. That was the first thing that came out, and then after that, what happened was people started to come forward with these allegations. And it was, nothing to the extent of something like Donald Trump, like we'll get into, faced. But I think recently the first time someone actually accused him of, inappropriately touching them. Before it was just like kind of like creepy behavior and maybe using your power in a very
Right.
making people uncomfortable kind of way. Because when it's your boss, it's it can come off a little bit different than if it's just somebody, or at least somebody in power as well. It can come off a little bit different than just like a random person being creepy, right? I think
Right.
that's a
So
big part of
yeah,
it.
because anytime you are in a position of power, and I mean power as in you're a supervisor, you're a manager, you have people that work
You're
below
a
you that
governor
you're
of a state, like
but I mean anytime. I'm broadening the definition where it's like as if you are you take a lead role and people report to you in your workplace, there's a certain there's certain things that go along with that, and you have to act in a certain way where you can't be making passes at people like they're your coworker, that like your equals, because that can be misinterpreted different ways. And it's also you don't want people doing it because they think they need to do it to advance in their career. And now if you're the governor, people around you, it's like, especially like you said, he's got that tough guy attitude. People are afraid to come out. But yeah, the first accusation that came out like just over a week ago, I feel like it's not that recent. I mean, not that long ago, where it
no,
was
I
more,
mean
it was
the
just
first
inappropriate
accusation was, I
behavior.
want to say, like a couple weeks ago now.
Was it a
I mean,
couple
I
weeks
don't
ago?
know.
Time's moving fast, man.
Yeah, it was maybe almost even a month ago we've been talking about. I feel like we've been talking about this now, but yeah, time is a flat circle. I lose track of time, so maybe it has maybe not a month, but maybe at least like 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Time's
maybe.
all wobbly, wibbly wobbly.
Wibbly wobbly.
Um, so I mean, now here's my hypocrisy is like, you know, now right or wrong, I'm not taking a stance on what should be happening. That's not what I want to do here. I
I'll
just want
take
to
a
talk.
stance.
I mean, I, I want to be unobjective to start with. How's that?
Okay.
But because
I
I think
definitely have a stance.
there should be an investigation. You should definitely always see if these allegations are true, not whatnot. But right away, you had people from both parties calling for his resignation, for him to step down. Of course, he said, "I'm not going to step down," and it's getting even more so now. Now there's an impeachment investigation. There's another investigation, so it's just piling on at this point. And I see people that are Republicans posting on the socials talking about like, yeah, he should step down, all this stuff, and blah 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 blah. Yet when you had in 2016 someone who's running for president that was accused by dozens of women of sexual misconduct and who openly bragged about being able to touch women in their genitals on tape, and they still defend him and like proudly talk about that stuff as like that's a manly thing to do. That's the hypocrisy, and that's where, and that's, it's not just hypocrisy, but that is just like blatant idolization of a person, and nothing that person can do is bad, and they're going to defend that person to the ends of the earth. But someone else they don't like, especially on the other party, does something that is wrong, and it's probably on the scale. If there was a scale, not that there should be a scale in sexual misconduct, that is not what I want to say here. But if there was a scale, like a spectrum of some sort, what we're looking at one end is probably, yeah, it was wrong, and I do not defend any of it, but not at the same scale of walking into a beauty pageant and grabbing people because you can.
Yeah, right. Bad is bad. I don't think we can argue
Bad
that.
bad
But
is
yeah, I
bad.
mean there are degrees of how bad things can be, right?
One is going to get you a slap on the hand, one should get you in jail.
Yeah.
That's where I'm talking about. Like, one, if you did that, if you had a daughter and one person like just made a sexual pass at them, you'd be like, hey, you better stop, and let them know, please don't make a pass at my daughter like that again if she's not interested. And if nothing else happens, that's fine. Whereas if
How old's
that
your
same
daughter? Your daughter
person,
can speak for herself. But
well, I'm saying like if she's still living under my roof, kind of thing,
well, then yeah.
But but if that same daughter, same person comes and like grabs my daughter, we got other issues. That's the kind of scale I'm talking about.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. I'm just.
Right. Oh, I know.
I'm,
Bad is
I'm,
bad.
I'm, making, I'm
It's
making a point. Yeah, but never. This goes back to just never listen to conservatives when they criticize Democrats, because they're not going to criticize their party the same way they're going to criticize Democrats, and for the most, and sometimes that goes the same for liberals and Democrats. They tend to have bias for their candidate as well.
I agree.
Um,
Totally.
and maybe not to the same extent, it seems. But like I said, I don't have any statistical analysis to back up this statement. It's just more how things are perceived by me, and that might even be part of my bias. So I'm willing to accept that. But
Well, I think in recent
I
years
get
we've
my
seen the
stance is
idolization.
right. Yeah, there's a big difference between the way people idolize somebody like Trump and the way people support um, people like Cuomo. Because I do think Cuomo did a good job during the coronavirus, other than the nursing home number scandal, which in reality was just a stupid political move, and the way he handled it is just awful. Because
Right.
he's being the tough guy. I mean, he he's trying to act almost like Trumpian. I want to say, like, is not going to back down. I'm not going to apologize in a good manner. He tried to make some apologies about the scandal, the coronavirus numbers, and the sexual harassment, and both of them just came out like you're not really apologizing. You're just saying I'm sorry I got caught, or I'm sorry that you took this the wrong way. So that that doesn't help things. So so yeah, but conservatives are never going to hold their candidates accountable the same way they're going to hold Democrats accountable. And like I said, that's for this, to a certain extent, that's true for the Democrats as well, but maybe not to the same extent, the same degree, maybe.
Agree. I completely agree with you. If we go back a couple weeks before the sexual harassment stuff, just with the nursing home stuff, even that, you could see how the Republicans were just raking them across the coals, whereas Democrats were like, yeah, that wasn't good, but we need to move on because that happened, and there's nothing we can do to change it. We can reprimand them, whatever, but it's not like you know there was any it wasn't anything criminal that I know of.
Eh,
I don't know if it was criminal. I don't know, but I
no,
mean,
it's
Miss
criminal law, maybe not, but definitely
not
politically,
not
maybe morally
morally,
criminal.
it could be morally bankrupt, but you know, what politician doesn't have some moral bankruptcy,
But also too, the Democrats took away his emergency powers recently.
right?
That was something
In
that
response to that,
they responded to him by taking
no,
away his emergency powers, which is
if
which
you're
is
gonna
an
do that,
appropriate
let's.
response.
I just realized how
There,
like red my cheeks are. By the way, sorry. Looking at the camera, I'm like, I'm so red.
but even like top ranking Democrats are now calling for his resignation, which I don't mind, honestly. If he said, this is I was wrong, I'm going to step down, um, I would totally accept that. I do understand where he's coming from. He's thinking governors have weathered the storm through much worse. The election isn't until next year. people
Let
might forget
let
about this.
let the voters decide.
Yeah.
No, I'm
There will
sorry.
be an investigation. This is all going to come out in public. So he's at least he's not trying to hide from things like some Republicans would.
True,
Trump
but I think
specifically.
once you get past the sexual part, it's like it's one thing if you had an affair with a consenting adult, that's what, that's you in your private quarters. But if you're making unwanted advances and making people feel uncomfortable, that's a whole nother category. And
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
stand
and
for that.
if I mean the latest allegation, I think things need to come out a little bit further because that one was actually like pretty bad sounding. Like the
Right.
other ones were just like at a wedding, he put his hand on somebody's back and was like, "Oh, I want to kiss you," and stupid
Even
old men
that's
stuff
stupid.
who
Yeah.
like
Old man stuff
is
like,
awful,
hey,
and
you're
he
so
should
hard.
learn from it maybe, and doesn't seem like he learned from it, and that's an issue. But is it to the level that he should resign from his position? I think he's looking at it like I said, like other governors have weathered much worse. We
Well, here's the
recently last
problem.
year had a
Here,
governor like
it,
old photos surfaced of him wearing blackface, and people have forgotten about that.
right.
They called for his resignation. He didn't resign. So he's looking at things like this, and people have a short memory, and
Well,
he's like,
totally.
I'm just going to weather the storm and hope everything works out for the best.
Well, in the 24-hour
I don't
news
think he
cycle,
has the
everything's
numbers to
short.
get impeached. That this unless something comes out that's really awful. I don't think he really has impeachment. I don't think has enough support in New York to go that far. Like I said, if I'd be very happy if he stepped down right now. To be honest, number one, he'll be fine. Losing his governorship isn't gonna bankrupt him.
No.
He'll be all right. I think he just made at least $1 million off his book that he just wrote. So he'll
I
be
need to write a
financially
book.
set. He's not gonna be homeless because he got impeached. Um, and that way we can just kind of move on. Which I think would be a good look. I think it's something that the Democrats could then point to and be like, listen, we're being responsible, right? We're
Right.
holding people accountable. Going back to Al Franken, that was the same thing that happened on him. He kind of fell on a sword to kind of show the Democratic Party has higher moral standards than. But let's be honest, especially the conservatives aren't going to look at that and be like, oh well, that's what we should do now. They're just going to be like, no,
They never have.
we're going to do what we always do, and that's just go through it and be like, it's fine. Like look at the difference between like this and Kavanaugh, and that's the hypocrisy that I think you're talking about. Like you look at the Kavanaugh case, where it was automatically like, well, this is a long time ago. This is ridiculous. Why are we bringing this up? And instead of like examining it and seeing like what issues has he learned from this, how does this going to reflect on him being a judge,
Right.
things like that. Whereas now something that happens with Cuomo and all the Republicans are just enraged.
Especially with Kavanaugh, that's a lifetime appointment.
Yeah.
To the highest court of the land. We're not talking about a governorship that you have for 6 years and can get voted out of. We're talking about a lifetime appointment that is going to be deciding the futures of people, of the whole nation for decades, if not centuries.
Yeah, if Cuomo rides this out, he's going to face an election next year, and we're going to see, and then
he gets voted out the old-fashioned way.
Up in the primaries.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Unless like a super moderate Republican shows up to run against whoever runs for the Democratic seat is.
Or he might just not choose to run again.
We're going to have a Democratic governor in New York no matter what.
He just ride this out and then decide not to run again, or he gets primaried,
Right.
and then someone else takes the reins, and that's fine. Or he does the right thing and steps down. But I don't think that's, again, tough boy thing. But you were saying before, like when you mentioned he was drunk and said, I want to kiss you to somebody at a wedding. I was thinking about the whole Pepe Le Pew controversy that just popped up as well.
Yeah.
Because, maybe we shouldn't have cartoons for kids that are rapey. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly where that mentality is. That's exactly the mentality that he's expressing.
These are the cartoons that we grew up on, and it gave people bad messaging. Like
it gave people license. Like
millions of examples. How the history is cringe, and things in the past were cringy and definitely awful. Like I bring up Revenge of the Nerds all the time.
Oh my god,
it's
so bad.
It's a great movie.
Except for that one part.
It was a great 80s movie. No, there's more than one part.
There's There's the whole.
There's at least two.
There's the spying on the girls in their house.
Yeah,
the robots.
Yeah. They set up cameras in the enemy
in the showers,
dorm room,
right?
And showers
and there's the scene in the moon room.
And then there's the scene in the bouncy castle where he literally raped somebody.
And then she's like, okay with it afterwards.
Yeah, I liked it. So, afterwards, the rape was okay.
And then they get married and have 2 more movies where they're married, and it's like, right. No, he raped her.
Yeah.
And at the time, and when you're a kid, like when I first watched that, like the first couple times watching it, I didn't see that. Then like as I got older, I was like, wait a second, this is not kosher at all. How is this funny?
That's also because the culture changed, right? Like I don't think people who were our age watching that in the 80s like thought, oh, that's bad. They're like, oh well, yeah, that's. I mean, probably some women did, but most women did. But I think most men watching it were like, "Oh yeah, that's how you get a girl." Like if
you just
I'm
force
the nerd,
yourself upon her,
like I just have to show how sexually my sexual prowess is, and she's gonna fall for me.
She can't say no now.
No,
look how good in the bounce house I am.
Right,
wearing my
she'll definitely fall Darth Vader mask. If I just perform a little cunnilingus in the bounce house, like when she thinks I'm somebody else, then she'll be like, oh wow, that was you instead. Let me fall in love with you instead of my boyfriend. That's not how that's gonna go down.
But so yes, we were given bad messaging as kids.
Yes.
And you know what? And looking, I always thought there was something weird about Pepe. It's more funny that he thought the cat was a skunk than anything else. That's where I thought the joke was. But then like the whole forcing yourself upon someone, you can see how if you grew up not just that, obviously other forms of media always putting this message where it's like, if the man is tough enough, eventually the girl, you see it in movies all
Well,
the
it's about
time.
treating women as property, and I think that
Right.
that was a lot of the messaging was like how to win a woman, right? And like we didn't really think of women as like people in relationships. We thought of them as like
You're my property.
the whole courtship
Oh my
thing was
God.
like how do you win this woman, which is weird. You don't win people, right? You don't you can win over people.
Even, just
That's
like,
different. But you don't, it's not like a competition where like if you're at the top of the ladder, like okay, you win a woman, you win sex. Like basically,
yeah,
that was the message that we were getting fed,
right. And
and people are starting to realize, you know what, that's kind of cringe. That's
if
not the
you're
cool.
man
That's not the
if you're
cool thing to
manly
do.
enough, and you're forceful enough, the woman's gonna eventually just succumb to your manliness and give in. And then we end up with a 50%
Right.
divorce rate 20 years later. you know,
Well, that had a lot to do with laws.
well, there's a lot of things.
And
I,
yeah,
I mean,
and
I'm gonna get into that. I have theories
female
about
empowerment,
people.
actually being able to like get a job and hold credit cards and whatnot.
Well, and also,
Uh,
people deciding to marry their high school sweetheart before they realize who they actually are as a person, and then
yeah, and I don't think people, especially our age, um, bringing it back to Generation Zillennial, really realize how bad it was for women, in the past.
right,
Um, there's the dynamic that society had in Western civilization, at least. How really beholden women had to be to marriage and men, and um, yeah, just what options did they have really? Like they
right.
couldn't get a decent job. They couldn't they couldn't even open a bank account. I think in most places.
And even now, I mean, you even still see today, like there's a case um, last year when when Apple came out with their credit card. Two people, a married couple, both applied for it, and the husband got a better, higher credit limit and a better percentage rate than the wife, and they make the same income
Yeah, I
and they
believe
have
it.
the same credentials, and
I
he
believe
still got a better deal on it. And it's like there's still bias in the system that's so deep down that they need to unprogram, and it's it's the work is never over for equal rights ever.
no, and yeah, we brought this up weeks ago. I think that's something that the left, you have to realize on the left is like the fight is never over, right? There's
It's never
always going to
over.
be oppressive forces.
Yes.
You can always have more equality, but um, to reach full equality is going to be
I don't think you'll ever reach full equality ever in all of human,
um,
like
I'd like to believe
5,000
you're
years
more
from now.
optimistic than that. I'm not going to say in our lifetime. I'm trying to think like Star Trek future, like maybe
Oh,
then
so we
we'll
have
have a
to go.
little, we'll have
So
at
we have
least
to
a
go.
little bit more, but there's still going to be oppressive forces. It
We
may not
stop.
be based on gender or sex or
Well, that's what I mean. Eventually, there's
religion,
something
but
else is going to come up that's
there
going to
will
be
be other
depression.
oppressive forces
It's
because
going to
that's
be wealth. It's going to be this.
that
It's
we'll
going to
have
be
to
that.
fight
It's going to be
about.
like people
Right.
with, there was Star Trek original series episode where, the people that had the black on one side and the white on the other side didn't like the people that had the black on, the face colors flipped, even though they're exactly the same people.
Well, that was a lesson on race,
Oh,
right?
yeah, obviously. But still, but, I don't, the problem to get to the Star Trek future is you have to go through two really bad major world events to get there.
That have already happened.
No, you have to go through World War Three.
They happened in the 90s.
You have to go through World War Three because you have to have a nuclear holocaust, basically. And then the second step was, which they talked about in DS9, where you had, I can't think of the name of the event right now, but basically in the cities, if they were just piling people into, they're coordinating people off into certain parts of the city and just like dumping them in as large prisons essentially, and until like they were able to broadcast out, because it was like people that just lost their jobs that were doctors that got thrown in there because they didn't have an income and they got caught out after curfew or something. That was like
Yeah, I
the
didn't watch
second.
too much DS9, so
I
I
can't
don't
I can't
I
think
don't
of the
remember the
guy's
story.
name. Well, it was one. He went back in time, and the guy who was the person that did it actually ended up dying. So Cisco had to take his place and do the things that he did. And so the history.
Yeah, I
So
always
you
liked
want
when
to make
Star Trek
sure the
did.
history happened, but it
I
was
always liked
him.
when Star Trek did like time travel episodes and like kind of explored how their version of the future like looked at the past, because
Right.
they always kind of looked at the past like, oh my god, the past was cringe, and like
How did
it's
you
kind
do
of it's
this?
kind of the same thing. We're coming to the realization that, oh my god, the past was bad.
Past is
Like
trash. I mean,
we know there are atrocities, and there's still atrocities going on in the world, but I think a lot more people are recognizing like, oh my god, like we need to grow as a
well,
people.
it's I always wonder what our grandkids are going to think about what we did and like how bad our time was,
Right.
and like the things that just you and I are doing personally that people are going to cringe about, because I'm sure there's something that we're doing now in our personal lives that like later on people are like, I can't believe you did that. Like we didn't know any better. That's how it works. But speaking,
Yeah,
evolution
at least we should
and,
have.
and civilization.
And civilization, yes.
See, this is a segue. So we did promise last week that we're going to talk about things that were not politics, and we said we would talk about video games. So I asked you what game you wanted to talk about, and you said Civ 6,
Yes,
which I wrote
because
in my notes as Civ 4 by accident because I put the
yeah, you
I on the
mixed
wrong
up the
side of
I and
the.
the V.
Yeah.
That's okay.
There,
Yeah,
now you know.
I've never gotten into a civilization game. I think I got Civ 1 as a gift, and I don't think my computer could run it at the time. And I
Oh, the
never
days.
ended up playing it. But I was looking for like a simulation game. And they
Oh,
released Civ 6 on the Switch, which I thought was perfect for me because it's something I love the Switch because it's kind of portable, and I can sit there and I can play it in bed and on the screen. And funny side story, I usually watch like old commercials while I play video games on my Switch for some reason. It's just something I've always liked to do, like watch old commercials, which is funny because you hate commercials when you watch them on TV, but then I'll go back and watch like 80s and 90s commercials just for like the nostalgia
there's
factor
I
of
was
it.
gonna say there's your nostalgia, and it's like something that you can have in there, enjoy, but not have to pay full attention to because
Right,
you already know the content.
right. I'm not, and it doesn't really matter because some of these commercials are 80 or 30 years old. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, so I know you play Civ 6, but you play it on the computer.
I do.
I wonder if there's any difference between the console version and the computer version. I'm sure there's a
So
little bit
so
differences,
first,
but
although I assume all 12 people that listen to our game our podcast probably know what Civ is, but
we're
we
up to
should probably still.
12.
I think so. I don't know.
Awesome,
Yeah, we're getting there. Yes,
going viral.
but so Civilization, and I only got back into it recently because one, it was on sale, and I listened to a podcast interviewing the creator of Civ, Sid Meier, right? Sid,
Yep,
I better, yes. I'm like,
Sid
wait,
Meier.
no, yeah, Sid Meier, um, whose name is on the box, about it. So I actually never heard an interview with him before, so I thought it was great. But um, quick synopsis: if anyone's never played Civilization, it is exactly what it sounds like. You are basically creating a civilization. You're starting from, and you can choose where you start from. There's a lot of modifications, but if you just do the quick start, you're starting from, I think it's 5000 BC, if I get the year correctly. But you're starting
Yeah,
with like stone tools, and you get one warrior and one settler, and you found a city, and you try to build multiple cities, and you try to build up your civilization. And there you have to fight against, there's barbarians at the beginning, or actually throughout the whole game if you don't just take them all out. There's barbarians that try to destroy you and your crops. There's other civilizations that you meet that may or may not befriend you or go to war against you. There's city states nowadays, starting I think 2 versions ago. There's city states which you can ally with and trade with. And the way you can play this game, the amount of strategies are endless because you can win a couple ways. You can win through domination. You can win through culture, religion. Um, there's two more.
culture,
It's culture, religion,
science.
science. Thank you, and
Because
domination.
I always go for the science victory.
So and it's you always think of a strategy, but you always get messed up somehow because those damn barbarians. Um, and you play, it's five. The one I'm playing standard, so it's 500 turns.
Right.
Then the game automatically ends, and you declare winner. But I haven't gotten that far yet because I keep losing to America.
Let's. I actually the last game that I played, I finally I turned off all the victory conditions except for score. And I
Oh,
was like, I'm gonna play 500 turns, and I'm just gonna go through all 500 turns and see what
oh man.
happens. And it was interesting. The cool thing about the game is that you can kind of see like how your decisions affect the world, and how the decisions of other countries affect the world.
Hmm.
And um, That's what kind of fascinates me about it, because every game is different. It's never the same game twice. Like, because they plop you down. The map is always randomized.
Hmm.
I you can basically randomize the map however you want. I usually just play the continents, but you know there is an option to play like the real world geography, which I've never done because I feel like that's almost cheating.
Yeah, I
Um,
did that one time, and I was like, this is just it's too weird because I
did
know
you
where I
recognize it?
as soon as I know
Because
where I am, I know where to
yeah,
go.
because the way they start the game off, you can't see anything other than like what's immediately around you, and then as you send out your scouts or your barbarian or your warriors or
Hmm.
whatever, then the map kind of opens up and you can kind of see a little bit more of what's going on around you.
Right.
And then obviously if you befriend other city states or nations, you can kind of see what's around them. So it's pretty cool in that regard. So it's kind of cool how you like explore things. You can find different world wonders, like they have natural wonders. You can also build like famous that's what I'm looking for, monuments and whatnot,
Yeah. Landmarks,
landmarks like
man-made
that
landmarks.
that give you perks in the game. You can have there's different governments in the game,
Well, depending on which
which
landmark you
give you different
build,
perks.
if you look over the landmarks before you build them, they tell you what perks you get, whether it's culture or whether it's religion or whether it's military strength based on what the landmark is, and you can only build certain things based on your location too. It's like this has to be built by a mountain or by a mine or by
Or
water.
on desert, yeah.
Yeah, so it does constrain you that way. So it's so I've been playing since like Civ 4. um you have to keep adjusting. Like I think at Civ 5 I figured out the hack and I was able to beat it pretty easily. But Civ 6 they re-engineered a lot, and it's been a lot harder even on the same like difficulty level, because there's a lot more nuance, especially with the
Yeah, this
city
is the first
states.
game I think that you have to build your districts, because you have different districts like
Yeah,
commercial
oh yeah,
districts, culture district, or it's called the theater
you
district,
got theater, you have
banks,
entertainment,
commercial
commerce,
districts,
industrial.
harbors.
You got
Yeah,
harbors, you have neighborhoods.
and you have to actually build those in the map. Where I think in the past they were built on your city, they were just basically built in your city
Yeah,
tile.
I mean everything you built before, like what all this stuff was usually inside your city, and you didn't have to choose like, well, if I build it here, it's going to take away that resource now. So now you have to be more selective, and you also
Yeah,
have to choose like it can only go some. And if you haven't done this yet, I don't know if it does on the Switch, but you can turn on your map settings so you can always see what resources are there on the map,
yeah,
which is really helpful. And then also when you're gonna place those things, it'll tell you what the bonuses are based on where you place it, so you can make an educated decision. And it'll have the negative, like, oh well, if you do this, it's also gonna take this away.
right.
Um, so it does
Yeah,
take
because
time
there's
doing that.
there's build there's builders in the game. The builders can go and they can build like farmlands, or once you get to um, like industrial. One of the industrial perks is you can, when in the forest, you can build like a lumber mill.
Yep,
But I think that takes away some of your food. If it adds production, but takes away some of your food, I think.
it does. Yes.
Um,
So the one thing about the new thing about builders this time is that they only do three things unless you have a car that lets them do five things.
right.
In previous versions, builders never died.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I didn't
what
know
would
that.
happen was you would build a bunch of builders, then eventually you just have all these builders, and you're like, um, crap. Now what do I do?
I just have a bunch of builders.
Because
Yeah,
you
the
could
builders
like,
have three. The builders each have three turns, or unless, like you said, if there's a certain perk where you can get five
I mean, well, in the past
turns.
games too, you had to use a builder to actually create your roads. Like now the trade routes create the roads,
Oh,
so you'd use builders to create your roads everywhere in the
yeah. Now they're
past,
automatically done when you have a trade route.
right? And also builders didn't build things in one turn all the time, so they tweaked the builder thing a little bit. Which once I understood, like, because when I started playing, I didn't know they had tweaked it, and I was like, wait, where am I know I had five builders. Where are all the builders?
Where
I
they
got
go?
confused, but it's definitely a lot better now. As in that, I mean, once you understand how it works, and their help menu is fantastic because you can open up that menu and look up anything you need. So as soon as you're confused, like, wait, why is this happening? And
Yeah, they've always had like an encyclopedia, like rule book, like because it is a complex game, but it's a lot of fun. And what I
immensely
was really
complex.
wanted to talk about, I guess, is like what's your strategy for building a civilization?
Oh,
Like what all right, first what leader do you like to use the most?
so I've taken a stance in a lot of in all games I play. I like to just be random. I don't want to choose
Okay.
because like there's so many leaders to choose from, but I've just taken a stance, especially because I play a lot of role playing games. I like to let the part of the game to me is allowing, whether it's creating a character in D&D where I randomly choose the stats for it and what kind of race and stuff, or if it's I'm playing a board game where you have to choose a character, I just randomly choose one out. Because to me, part of the game is having to play to the strengths of what you get dealt.
That's fair.
So, and also I just don't feel like spending 10 minutes picking a leader. Like I
I
want to,
know you're like I
I'm
always.
like, oh,
See, that's why I've usually stick to either Rome or Germany.
so I
Um,
think in the past I would either do Rome or because one of the, I think in the 4 or 5 Rome used I think it was Rome that would get a builder to start with or an extra builder, and or I pick India because India gets a bonus if you're peaceful. So if you don't want to be a war, dominating, you can get like a bonuses for being peaceful, which I found appealing, depending on how I play. So if right now I'm playing a game where I'm trying to do culture, I want to do culture victory. So I have first of all, on my technology tree, the immediate ones I always do based on what's immediately surrounding me. So I kind of think like, well, if there's a stone next to me, I would have to do mining because that would be logically what I would have to do to take advantage of the resource next to me. And then I did, in this case, once I got past a certain level, they did archery because that's always good for defense. And then I did look ahead on my tree, the technology tree, choose what I wanted to get to feature out. So it was automated like the next 5 things,
right.
because I want to get to this thing to do that because I want to be able to build the theater or whatever it was. And then in this current game I'm playing, I've made peace with every single nation I've met. One nation asked me to go to war with them against somebody else, and I declined. So I'm still in alliance with them. I agreed to have an alliance, but I did not agree to go to war because I did not want to do that. So it's very because war, if civilization the game tells you anything about the real world, is war is difficult and hard and not worth it.
Yeah, and slows the game down a lot too, because then you have to move your pieces around and
It totally
move your
slows the
armies
game
around.
down.
So it takes a lot longer to play when you're at war with another country.
One of the good
But
modifications they've made is as you advance in the war tree is that you can combine multiple units into one unit. So because in the past you couldn't have multiple units on the same tile. Um, so now you can combine 2 or 3 based on what you have for your technology, where you can have 3 of the same unit on the same tile now. So that does help with the gameplay. But yeah, you have to move all your pieces into place before you can even think about going to war with somebody. Because I tried that on my last game only because they attacked me first, and I decided to do the tit for tat, and I took
yeah,
like
I'm
4 of their
I'll never
cities.
declare war on another country. But if they declare war on me and my army's strong enough, expect to get some of your cities like taken over.
But
Because
again,
that's another option you can do. Is you can if once you can invade another country's or city state's city,
yeah,
and then if you defeat the city state tile or the city tile itself, you can actually take it over, which
right.
is always a lot
Or,
of fun.
or you can destroy it.
Or you can just raise it and destroy it, and
Yeah,
it makes everything around it blank, and then you can move in and settle
I
settle
think
there
that
if you want to.
the penalty for taking over a city used to be harsher. I think it's not as bad anymore. Like they still won't produce for a while, but at least it's not as bad as it used to be. It used to be like a very negative thing if you took over a city. Um, so
Yeah,
I
like I
think
said, I've never played the ones in the past. This one doesn't. You don't seem to have much of a penalty. You do. Yeah, that city loses a little bit of population. They might have a little bit lower production for a little bit while, but other than that, it's
now
basically like now it's your city. And it also depends on how built up their city is, if you want it or not. Like,
now
um,
one good thing that I've found in this version, if you are going to war and you don't happen to have an army, aside from just buying soldiers up, if you have any city states that are sovereign to you, you can levy their army
yes, for a fee.
for a fee. Yeah, you got to pay for. That's the thing. You always have to. This is where I also going to war is expensive because you have to pay for all those soldiers that are out on the field. You got to pay for them. They take a salary. So every time you have one out there, it costs you money. And like you said, it slows the game down. It takes years to do a war, and then you may or may not have any resolution. You may have just fought the same person for 20 rounds and nothing happened,
Right. It's
and
basically
the line didn't move at all. You just wasted a lot of resources instead of building up your other things. That's why in this current game I'm playing, I'm trying to go for like that cultural victory where I'm just like I'm building all the theaters, I'm building all the amphitheaters and these things, and I want to. I'm trying to get all the great writers and the great performers. to try to get those points and see how that does. I'm in second place in culture right now, so I got to
So
up
you're
it a
almost
little.
yeah, you gotta push a little bit.
I do
Yeah, I
got to
always go
push
for
a little bit.
science just because I think it's probably the easiest. You just need a lot of production and a lot of campuses, and
Yep.
by the time and to win the science victory, basically you need to win the space race, and you need to colonize Mars. Um, so you need a lot of production and a lot of science. But once you get to the science, once you get all that science, you can kind of stop building more science and just focus on production, and then
And then build your
send
stuff.
people off to Mars, which is it's a cool game. And like I said, what it really kind of taught me was like how civilizations can like change their trajectory based on like things that happen around them and how how you have to react to things,
Hmm.
because you can be cruising along and all of a sudden, yeah, barbarians will invade, and you're like, crap, I was like focused on doing this. Or you can go like something can declare war on you. You're like,
Yeah, you have a surprise war all of a sudden. Now you have
yeah,
to
I was like, oh, I was really focused on going in one direction, and now is my army strong enough to fight this war, or do I have to stop
or the
everything
lack
and
thereof.
switch, yeah, and switch over and start building military units, because those can be time consuming, um, especially once you get towards the higher
You want to get into the
century.
industrial edge and all that. Well, also if you don't have the resources
That's
to
why
build them and
science
train
victory
them.
is good too, because then your military is more technologically advanced, and that's always a big factor in wars. Like
Yeah.
if your unit is at least like one technology above the team, the person that you're fighting, you're usually going to wipe them out pretty quickly.
My only issue is like because I'm doing the peaceful thing right now. I don't have any barracks built. I don't. I have like one unit in each garrison in each city, just as defensive, like one crossbowman everywhere. But we're getting closer to the industrial area. I have crossbowmen. I don't have rifles. At some point,
Yeah,
um,
if someone recognizes that and says, "Oh, this is right for picking."
right. So, and like I'm the top half of an entire continent right now. I'm like all of Asia basically. But if someone wanted to come over and be like, "Hey, we're gonna fight you now," I'd be like, "Oh crap," because I don't have anything to defend with worth
Yeah, I've
crap.
noticed. I've noticed that too. Like a lot of times, because my strategy is always you have to expand quickly, because space gets taken up very quickly in the game. Like
Right.
people will go and settle other lands. So ideally, you
You
want to
gotta
build
sprawl right
settlers
away.
early and have at least five cities by the time like you know zero AD rolls around. Because space gets taken up really quickly. But also too, I've found that sometimes I'll spread myself so thin that it kind of opens me up for attack, and then
Right.
someone will go to war with me, and I'm like, oh man, how do I even defend this all this area, because they're going to surround me, and then I got to move all my troops to one area, and then my other areas are kind of left open to a barbarian or another city state or another country.
So
um
I totally recommend, because I did this a couple weeks ago when I was getting my butt kicked all the time. I like watched a bunch of tutorial videos on YouTube of people like hacking, like, okay, these are the best opening moves you can do, these are the best like strategies you can do, just to like get going in the process. Because I was like, how am I losing it turn 300? I don't understand how I lost. I thought I was doing well, but then I just like all of a sudden it says defeat. I'm like, oh, what happened?
yeah, that happens usually. That's to a culture victory, like you don't
Right.
realize that another,
Exactly.
because the culture
So
victory has to do with the number of tourists that you get. You need
yeah,
more tourists than the other.
which I
Double the
realize i'm
tourist, I
not
think,
i'm
than the
not
lowest.
doing i'm not doing well with tourist right now, so I need to up my
Tourist attractions,
tourist. I need, yeah, you got to build those ancient
and it's
walls.
pretty cool because yeah, you can like Keith said, you can recruit like great artists, and you'll have like museums, and you can put stuff in museums, and you can build seaside resorts. At one point,
Well, yep,
that's
I'm
one of the
getting there. I'm
builder
about to be
upgrades.
there. I have seaside resorts right now. I can build one now, and I also have. I'm gonna start training some archaeologists soon, because I have history museums or
Yeah, that's another
archaeology
cool thing
museums.
too. You can in your theater district, you can either build an art museum or archaeological museum, and then if you build the archaeological museum, you can create archaeologists, and they have to go out, and there's spaces on the map where they basically do excavations, and you get like a spear or a rock
from like when you started the game.
the neat part is too, it tells you like what civilization that was from. Like either sometimes it's from barbarians, or sometimes it's from one of your civilizations, or
Right.
one of the civilizations that you're playing against.
It's from ancient Russia, and you are
Yeah,
ancient Russia.
it's
I was
pretty
like,
neat,
that's from 3 hours ago.
right?
But if so, I mean, my recommendation is if you're a person that likes, especially simulation games, and you have about 1,000 hours to kill,
That's the
because
thing. It's a
it
very time consuming game.
it is a slog. It is not something for the
It
person that's
usually
like,
takes me about a week to finish an entire game, and that's if I play like two
it's
hours a day.
it's the ultimate one more turn game. You're like, oh, just one more turn, just one more turn.
Yeah, literally, like that's been like a catchphrase of Civilization. Like
It's,
even
oh, just
after the game's over, you can keep playing, and that's literally what they say at the like.
one
Oh,
more
just
turn
one more turn, because you can keep playing and see how your civilization like keeps growing
progresses.
even after
Yeah.
the game's over, even after you lose or win. Which is another cool feature because you can just see like, okay, where am I going with this?
Yeah, and like you said, there's a lot of sandbox mode stuff you can always customize before you play and have fun with it.
Yeah, because what I like to do after the game's technically over, I like to just like use all my nuclear weapons and
And
see what happens.
currently, I'm waiting for one of my friends to finish a game that he's playing with another friend, so we can start a game because he doesn't want to play more than one Civ online game at a time, which
I
I
don't
get
blame them
because
because
it's
it
a
can get confusing.
exactly.
I see.
So
I've never see the Switch version. That's the downfall of
I
that
don't know
is
that you can play online.
you can't play online. There's no online version. You can play like a local multiplayer,
Well, it was
but
on sale on Steam for like $20 a while ago. I don't know if it still is.
hmm, it might intrigue me. That's what I need: two versions of the same game. Like
Yeah, well,
that's
but then you can play online with people.
then I can play online with people. But I didn't see how do you even play online with people. I feel like it would just because each turn takes some turns. I mean, in the beginning it goes pretty quick, but I mean, once you have a bunch of stuff going on, turns can take like 10, 15 minutes.
That's why you have the video chat up in the window next to you.
You get bored.
Yeah.
Just waiting, like it'd be like the mailed chess. Remember when people used to play like by
Oh
mail
God,
chess and like mail
people
in their
still do.
moves?
Hey, I've tried playing Civ with people in person a couple times, but we've never been able to finish a game.
Yeah, you'd have to play like a really kind of short version.
Not
It's
only
like
that, you need people that know.
people think Monopoly takes a long time. No, this
I
you
find you
could.
also you don't want to play in person with people, like if you're playing like a LAN party or whatever with like 3 or 4 people, if they haven't already played the game and have a strategy, because that's what slows it down too. Like if you don't know what you're doing at all, then every time you have a move, you're like, hold on, I gotta think about this. Like if as long as you have some hours into it and you have a strategy, you know the basics of the game, yeah, a turn can still take some time if you're trying to make decisions, but at least you know what decisions you're trying to make versus people that are like, oh sure, I'll download, we can play right now. And then they're like,
Oh
wait,
no, yeah, you
how's the
better.
builder work? And then everything just takes longer.
Yeah, you better play a couple rounds.
Play
Because
a couple rounds by
it
yourself
even took
first.
me like 2 or 3 games to even like realize what I'm on. I still don't know how to do anything with the religion. I still don't
So
know
you
anything
had
about
you have
religion.
to if you go the religion track, it took me a couple times to figure this out, and I eventually I had to look it up because so my current game, I'm not doing anything with religion. I have
I
not.
never do
I
anything with
didn't even.
religion. I don't think I've ever built a holy site.
I didn't even start. I didn't even like research that technology yet. So I can't even build a holy site. Like I haven't even done that. But if you build a holy site and then you build a mosque, I think it is, then even when you first get the holy site, you start using you instead of like you don't train an apostle or anything like that. You purchase them with your
Faith
religious,
points. Yeah.
yeah, with your faith points. So you go in, you purchase them with faith points, and then you can spread the word in other countries.
Yeah, and I haven't really figured out that part of it yet. I think
So you can
because
like train
I've
them.
had games where I've gotten to like I've taken over a city that has a holy site, so that's given me the option to build like apostles, I think, and gurus
Yeah,
and things
and
like that. And
and
but
only
I
apostles
just
can fight other apostles.
yeah, which is
They have
neat. But
religious
again,
battles.
I don't know how any of that works. So I was just like I just kind of just stay away from the religion part of the game and let the other civilizations handle that because you can build up faith other ways too. Like if you have a sometimes special sites will just give you faith points,
Yeah,
or sometimes you just like win faith points. Like or if you like sometimes if you take over, because there's like I said the barbarians and there's also little villages in the beginning
Yeah,
of the game.
the
You can
city
just kind
state.
of like,
Oh yeah, the villages that you
yeah,
discover.
little
Yeah,
villages. You just kind of like you interact with them. They're not hostile,
right.
and sometimes they can give you faith and gold and stuff like that. Um, but it's cool too because the faith points you can like purchase like things like upgrades like sewers and um, even like some of the military upgrades I think or like the camps upgrades you can use faith points for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty neat too. And or like like in the game you have to, it takes turns to do these upgrades unless you have enough money or faith. And sometimes you can actually just buy them outright, and that goes the same thing for units too.
Right.
You could just and if you don't have you don't want to wait enough turns to buy a new builder, if you have enough money, because I found that if you upgrade your commercial zones a lot and build up your stockpile of money, that makes the game a lot easier too. Because then you instead of having to wait these turns to make these upgrades, you can actually just buy them outright.
Agreed. I mean, and that's always a part of the game I always forget about. And I'm like, all right, I have a lot of money. I should buy something.
Yeah, commercial zones are huge for me when I play. And that also too allows you to build traders. And the traders can are a huge part of the game that allow you to get like you know extra food, extra production, extra money,
Extra culture
um, extra culture sometimes,
and
extra
religion.
science even too.
And yeah, science. Well, we have talked a lot about civilization. Holy crap!
Talk,
Let's take the
I
clock.
mean, it's a complex game. We could probably
Is
talk about it for a long time.
I have to start playing instead. Um, are we? Do we have time to squeeze in WandaVision now?
Of course we do. We
All
could talk
right,
about WandaVision too.
let's squeeze it in because we are approaching over an hour here. So, and I probably do have real work I need to do at some point.
Boo.
And well, I have a meeting coming up. Someone's gonna be driving by. So,
That's fair.
but WandaVision. So
Yeah, it
from this
ended.
point
It's
on,
over.
spoilers ahead.
Spoilers ahead. You can
If
turn
you haven't
it off
watched
if you
it,
haven't watched WandaVision.
if you haven't watched it,
Go watch WandaVision
have a
and
good
then come
week.
back and listen to the rest of our podcast. You can all now we can get back into binge territory. I think one of the things we learned about WandaVision is that people have become very impatient with media, and giving people time to speculate things
I love it.
is not always a good thing.
I don't know. See,
It definitely lets people talk about the show and
it creates more hype. I think.
creates more hype for the show. But a lot of that hype kind of fell short, and I think that disappointed a lot of people.
I see. I do. I like to talk about it like water cooler hype talk. I'll talk about people with near me. I really didn't go online and look anything up during the run because I was like, I don't want to read the 1,000 different theories that people have about what might happen because I'm going to be disappointed. I
Yeah,
always am.
I've stayed away. But my main gripe is
Oh, yeah, there's a gripe.
was the whole Quicksilver thing
Okay. Oh, like it
because
was.
that kind of fell flat.
You thought it was a letdown. That was he was.
Here's the spoilers. You know the old not the old the X-Men Quicksilvers. I can't remember the guy's name now. That sucks. But
The Fox,
the guy who played the guy who
Fox
played
version.
Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men series came back as the Quicksilver in the MCU version, but in Wanda's little version.
Because as you know, the real Quicksilver is dead.
But you're right. And I thought, oh, this is a good way to lead into the Fox merger and bringing in those characters into the MCU. It'd be kind of neat to do that, and it just turned out no, it was just a red herring. He was just a guy. Now, because of the way comic books and comic book movies work, they can always incorporate this later into the series somehow.
Yeah, they always retcon
I
that.
I'm still not completely sure that they're not going to do that. Because it could be like a double red herring where they're like, oh no, he's just a guy. It was just to fool you dumb idiots watching the show, and then come back later and be like, oh, guess what? No, it wasn't to fool you guys. It was actually somehow like another version of Quicksilver from another multiverse or whatever. Because now we're gonna get into Doctor Strange and the multiverse of madness,
right?
And I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And anything, right? Anything and everything can happen, basically. Like
right. So we can be bringing people in from that X-Men universe, from the previous X-Men. So there could be a lot of crossover stuff coming in, or like I also people talk about just wipe out and start fresh with mutants. We're just going to start fresh with X-Men as though they didn't exist beforehand. Because realistically speaking, unless you're bringing them from another multiverse, that's the only other way they could already exist is if they're another multiverse. Otherwise, if you're just bringing them into the MCU at this point, Like, there's no reason why they shouldn't have been fighting alongside everybody else against
Right.
Thanos.
That's they were there. They were just they didn't exist in this
So yeah,
universe.
I
They
think they
weren't
just
talking.
didn't
I
exist.
mean, all
And
the stuff that they had too. I mean, they definitely had like world changing events in their universe that
oh,
happened, and I
exactly.
don't that didn't get referenced at all.
So I think we have to have just completely new, and it makes sense. Like, let's just start fresh. We're going to completely reboot the X-Men, new actors, new character, well, same characters obviously, but new actors portraying them, and maybe some new backstories a little bit.
Yeah,
You know,
that's one way to go. I see, but
Huge
I
Jackman's
think
done,
you
I
have a
think.
lot of interesting like ideas if you take the X Men universe that they created over there
You do.
and kind of and there's just to be honest, there's two different timelines even with that because
Right.
they had to get new actors and everything kind of got mixed up and so it's like just to bring all that kind of stuff in and kind of merge it would it'd be like interesting storytelling to me. So I think they're gonna miss something if they just go all right blank slate these now there's mutants.
Or maybe,
Like
maybe they do create some sort of good backstory and reason as to why they weren't there or something else. I don't
I
know.
would have no problem with like the two worlds kind of merging and the two histories merging, and we create like some kind of new history
New Earth.
where all these things kind of happened at the same time. I mean, you could even go back and tell stories that happened in the MCU and in the X Men universe and kind of combine it into the MCU. And
Hmm.
I mean, maybe
Yeah.
down the road, 10, 15 years from now, you can do a whole new Infinity Saga where it's like, but here's the X Men with it too. Like,
Right.
they changed the way they do it because they're still kind of hung up on the Infinity Stones. Um,
Yeah.
because the Infinity Stones are super powerful and they can do a lot, and that kind of helps you like dig yourself out of story
Anything.
holes. So yeah,
Well, how
so
do
you
we
can
get back
basically
here? Well, he used the Infinity. He used the Soul Stone to do this. Oh, okay.
that's the thing. I mean, it's comic books. You can literally do anything. You
Right.
can bring people back from the dead. You can
It was funny.
reinvent characters. There can be
Right.
characters that I would like to see like a Gwenpool series. That's one of my favorite comic book characters.
Right before we started this, I saw a meme. It was like, I had two pictures side by side. One was like, two girls fighting. It said Wanda versus Agatha, and then the other side had two ancient philosophers debating things in a book, and said Vision versus White Vision. I'm like, it's exact. It's like, here's these two, and they battling it out, and then you have Vision's like, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, well, that was the idea, right? Because how does Vision defeat Vision? Like
Yeah, because they're equally
they're not gonna have a fight and somebody's gonna win that fight. So Vision has to be
intellectually
like,
is the only way.
right, who, like, what is Vision? Oh, you don't have any memories. Let me give you memories. That was weird. I didn't think like I didn't understand why White Vision just kind of like I was like, oh, I'm Vision now, and just flew away, and like
Where'd
he
he
has all the
go?
memories that he should, and then like and I guess I thought like maybe the way I kind of rationalized it was like, all right, now he has these memories, but he doesn't have the emotional attachment to any of these
Correct. Yeah,
memories,
that's what I was thinking. Like, he
right?
has
So it's
no,
like because in your mind you're thinking, oh, I have these memories now, and I have these memories of like loving Wanda and like being with Wanda. Like, why wouldn't I want to go help her?
but
And
that's
then
not
both
the same
visions
as
can go help
emotion.
her,
Yeah,
and then
Wanda.
right,
Yeah,
but that would
or he knew enough because he did know, he knew enough that it wasn't his place to do it, and he needs to leave.
that's another that was another thing too that I actually thought of. So that's a good point.
Because if I
Um,
stay, I could cause more problems by staying and helping versus I'm gonna leave and do something else that I have all these memories now. Oh crap, I forgot I left the kettle on over at Avengers
left the
HQ.
stove on. I gotta go damn it off at Avengers Mansion, or it's gonna blow up. Um,
Like, that's the kind of stuff he could be thinking about.
you
He'd
never
be like,
know.
oh crap, wait, there is a piece of the Infinity Stone over in Wakanda, and I need to go get it or something. Who knows what he might have thought of in that moment, but it also leaves it open for him to be somewhere else later on. Now he's gone. He's now still in the MCU. We still have a Vision out there. It's White Vision, and we don't know how he's going to be incorporated in later on. But we know that at some point he's going to come back into the story now.
Yeah. So, what do you think of the show as a whole?
I
Because
think
the last couple of episodes kind of got away from the whole sitcom recreation thing, which I thought was a really neat storytelling device, and I really enjoyed it because I'm a fan of old sitcoms, and I grew up with a lot of those sitcoms on reruns and stuff, and then obviously grew up with like the sitcoms of the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and kind of like framing that frame was kind of interesting to me.
yeah,
And then towards the end of the they didn't have anything to do with it, so they're like, all right, well, that's out the window, and it just became kind of like another Marvel property, like wizards in the sky shooting lasers, lots of
yeah.
lasers, Vision shooting lasers at Vision, and um, and a lot of like blah blah blah. exposition, blah blah blah.
Well, I
So
think
it kind of petered out for me. Like I'm not gonna say I still didn't. I still enjoyed the show. I still thought. Still think it was a good overall experience. But it, the because it kind of just got into another generic Marvel property. It was like, this is like a really interesting thing, and then it was like, okay, we're just back to just good old Marvel. I don't
right.
know what you thought about that.
I mean, so I think the whole WandaVision, the TV show, I think that was a great hook to get people interested, is because it's like, oh, what is this? This is quirky. This is different. And it felt like, hey, what's it here? Now I know some people I saw on social media, like they didn't get it. They didn't understand. They tuned out because of that. And I was like, you got to stick around. There's definitely is going to be a hook here. And as we progressed and we saw what was happening, I thought the hooks at the beginning were good to bring you in later on and how things got explained. Yeah, there was definitely, they had the offhanded comment like, hey, she's not broadcasting anymore at some
Yeah.
point to give a reason why we couldn't see it. It was just like one line. Um,
Well, there's also really no
and,
one to broadcast to, was there?
and I think at some
After
point, her,
they turned the army base into a circus.
yeah, well, and not only that, but like at that point, she expanded her barrier. So how much, and as we know, as it got further to the edge, she had less control because she can only go do so much. And she doesn't even, as we understood at the end, she doesn't even fully understand what she's doing.
Right.
She has these powers and doesn't fully understand the powers. She is a quick learner apparently, because you figured out how to put runes up on the wall of the thing before uh, the climax, which I thought was clever.
Yeah, I thought that was an obvious like that was an obvious like once, and especially too because like the episode before Agatha like trapped her in the runes. Where it's like, my magic, you're only my magic works.
And they also did that in the recap
runes,
at the beginning of the episode.
not your, and then in the recap, they definitely hammered that point home.
Whenever
Only
there's a recap,
all the runes that I create, you guys can do the magic. You can't do the magic.
I mean,
And
that's
then it
just
was like,
that's just
okay,
TV 101 right
that's
there.
obviously gonna be the way that Wanda defeats Agatha, because
I mean, that's TV and comic book 101
you basically
though.
told the audience, if you know anything about storytelling, you basically told the audience.
It was a
Like,
foreshadow.
this is yeah, but foreshadowing
Yeah, you're right. It was
would be a little more subtle there.
Yeah,
a little more subtlety to it. Like, but she was, we had to do the famous Marvel exposition dump and like say, this is what's happening. This is exactly what's happening. Let me explain it to you so the audience knows what's going on.
we're all in on this now. But
so now everybody knows.
And
like, I always like the ship of Theseus thought experiment. I think that was an interesting thing thrown in there. Are you this? What is, because what are you? What are people? What are things? If we if you don't know what the ship of Theseus thought experiment is, basically Theseus had a ship, and if you throughout time, if everything on that ship gets replaced, is it still the same ship? And that's that's something that I think people have to contend with, because we're changing all the time too. The cells in our body aren't necessarily all the same that they were when we were born. So what does that make? What are you? Like, what are people? I think that's where the thought experiment is going, and I think that's a pretty interesting philosophical angle.
If you change out all the members of
what is humanity? What is personality? What is your physical being? Because it's not, we think of ourselves as being the same, but in reality, we're
physically
on
not.
molecular level. We're not, right, on the basic level. We're not the same thing that we were even 2 seconds ago.
True. I was gonna say, if you change out all the members of the Allman Brothers Band, is it still the Allman Brothers Band?
That's that would have been a really interesting way to put it instead of the ship,
because it's like,
are you familiar with the Allman Brothers?
Because it's like one brother left in the band.
Brother.
There's only one. There's only one Allman left in the band, I think, at this point, or none.
But you know what I'm saying?
Anyways.
That's an interesting thought experiment, and I'm glad they kind of brought that in and kind of talked about that a little bit.
Little intellectualism in the show.
Yeah, throw a little philosophical theory into your Marvel comic.
Now, does Agatha ever come back?
Red laser universe.
Do you think Agatha ever comes back again?
they foreshadowed it, right? They at the end they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'll be seeing you,"
Yeah.
and maybe not. I would like to see her again. I love Catherine Hahn. I think she's an amazing actress. I think she's
Hmm.
hilarious. I haven't seen her. I don't think I've ever seen her do anything bad as far as
Yeah.
any roles. So and I think she nails every role she's given. So I would like to see her again. Maybe she'll show up in Doctor Strange for at least a little bit, and like, oh, I know someone who can help.
Well,
And she actually becomes like kind of reforms, becomes a good guy because she has really no choice.
so you think now I
Because that was kind
see.
of foreshadowed too, right? They're like,
Right.
oh, I can be good, and her mom was like, no, you can't be good. So maybe in the future, it's like, oh, I'll be good now, and she's good. That would be cool, right? That's
Yeah.
character growth.
Well, speaking of character growth, Wanda's going to be even more powerful in the next time we see her than previous
Yeah,
because
because
now
now
she's
she's
going to be
learning
educated.
stuff.
Now she's going to be educated. Now she's going to have
Now
raw
they
power.
own
She's
the
going to have
name Scarlet
education,
Witch, so she can actually be the Scarlet Witch.
which I thought was a
Yeah, and
clever
where
way
are they
of.
going to go with
Yeah.
that? Is she gonna be the bad? Is she gonna be the next bad guy? Is anything gonna turn her into like? Is she gonna
Um,
be so distraught that she becomes an actual bad guy, or maybe just like a neutral force that causes chaos
by
with her
accident.
chaos magic? See how that works?
Ah.
Um,
Hey, I played a chaos mage in D&D once. It's crazy because you accidentally end
I
up
can
hurting it.
imagine.
Well, the thing about chaos magic, and this is okay, games are based on other things, so based on comics, whatever. Chaos magic is that even though it's very powerful, it's that it can go wrong in very dramatic ways without you trying to. Because as a chaos mage, if I did a spell, I had to roll a die to see who the spell actually affected sometimes. So I could be trying to hurt a bad guy, but end up killing my
So
friend.
neat.
So it's chaos magic. You could be trying to do
That's
this,
neat.
but end up doing that
Yeah,
instead
like
without
in
intention.
right, you can think you're doing something good, and at the same time, like actually like be doing harm.
Right.
And hey, how do people react to that? And how do people stop it? And the line they threw in there about, oh, you're more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, and it's like that's Doctor Strange. Like, ooh, are
Yeah.
they gonna have to like a
Yeah.
magic battle somehow, and he's gonna have to like kind of like rein her in, and
Well,
because I
she's
still
one of the
think
top.
she's
She's one of the
she's the
top three
perfect way to.
superheroes of power. Anyways, it's her. It's her,
Oh,
Captain
she's
Marvel, and
definitely
Thor. The
one of the
top
most powerful
three.
people
You
in the
know.
Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I still think she's kind of like the key if they want to merge the Fox Marvel universe and the MCU, and I still think she's the way to do it.
Mm.
Because her
She
powers
she could bring them in.
obviously affect reality, right? Her powers can affect reality, so I think that's the perfect
She
way to kind of
causes the
introduce
mutations around the
them.
world.
I mean, she caused
Oh,
Monica
Rambo.
Rambo's mutation,
Yeah. So maybe
right? She
maybe
turned into
she actually
photon
does.
finally.
Maybe she actually does something that causes mutations to start happening around the world, and that's what causes mutants.
I heard a theory like all the people in Westview actually now
Never.
they're because they were in the hex for so long, like they actually got mutated, and something's gonna happen to them where they all turn into mutants,
Oh, that's
and
crazy.
that's kind of where it kind of spreads out. I think
Hmm.
it would need to be a little bit more widespread than just one little town if you wanted to
Yeah. No, I think it would
incorporate
have
that
to be
into
like
the
a
MCU.
worldwide
But
event.
like I
Heh.
said, I think it's a good way to make her the key to like merging these two properties that because obviously Disney wants to do something with these.
Right.
They wouldn't have spent so much money on these properties if they just were just like, oh, I just don't want Fox to make any more Marvel movies and bury our Fantastic Four characters anymore. Stop making
Yeah.
Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah. Can we make a good
You keep
Fantastic Four now,
you
please?
keep burying them. So now we're just gonna just hold on to them. Like that was another thing too, and that people were complaining about bringing up the aerospace engineer that they wouldn't say their name. And it's like, oh, that's gonna be Reed Richards. And it's
Right.
like, nah, it's just some random person
Or it
that
could just be
they
another
didn't
red
replace.
herring.
Yeah, another way to just be like, we're doing. Just kidding. Thanks for watching. And I think that's. I think that was kind of like the why it kind of Peter like because I think people were so excited for things to like start moving and happening that when things didn't happen like the way they wanted them to, they were like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. There was so much potential there, which is just
Yeah.
fine.
But I think that's
Like I
also when
said, it
people
was
get
still
their
it was
expectations
still
up.
an enjoyable show. It was still fun to watch,
I mean,
but
that's why when there's a movie
um,
I want to see coming out or a show I want to see coming out, I don't watch the previews. I don't read the spoilers because I want to enjoy it the first time
yeah,
around and not get because you watch the preview or you read people's expectations or something like that. Then you get these expectations up here, and then when you see it, and reality is here, which is still really high, but your perceived perception of it comes down to here, which is even lower because you were thinking it was going to be spectacular. So anything short of spectacular becomes a disappointment. And I don't like to live my life that way when it comes to my entertainment. I just want to be entertained, enjoy it. I want to be on for the ride. I thought it was great. I enjoyed the last episode. I'm excited for the possibilities that it leads to more than the show itself, I think.
Oh yeah, I can I have no problem with that. That's a perfectly acceptable. Yeah, I don't like to watch, like, I don't barely watch any trailers or anything either. Like, but like I just said, I think just, and not even because I was expecting things. I just think that there was so much more they could have done with it in
Right.
hindsight, that it's just kind of like, oh, okay. The last couple episodes were just not as engaging as the previous six or so. Which, it happens. You try to write a finale sometimes, and it
Mhm.
you kind of fall short. But because you go back to what you know, and that was people flying around in the sky shooting at each other.
Hey, we have the technology. We will use it.
That's right.
Well, hopefully the next, I'm excited about Doctor Strange. That's gonna be the next big Marvel thing coming out. Oh no, we got Winter Soldier and Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well coming out.
Yeah, when's
Another
Black
TV show.
Widow coming out? Do we know anything about that?
On May, I think is May. Last I read, Black Widow's coming out.
Because it was obviously Black Widow was,
It got
and that
delayed by
I
like
don't
a
think that's
year.
going to really relate to too much because that's all in the
That's
past.
past, yeah. So it's not going
But
to relate to anything
yeah,
current.
I was supposed to come out before the pandemic hit, and they kind of pushed it back and
Smart, I guess. I
had
don't know.
another year to do whatever they want with it. So
Well, it's going to be coming out in May, I think, is the last thing I saw. So
you
when
don't
it
have to wait
does,
till May to
we'll be
listen to our
talking about.
next podcast.
No, you wait till next week, and we'll have another
We'll
one
be
for
back
you.
next week. Look at that.
But
We're gonna
until
get
then,
these.
don't worry about cancel culture because it's not a thing. Hold everyone to the same standards when it comes to sexual harassment, and play some
And
video
play
games.
Civilization 6.
Play some video games because they're good for the soul. Yeah,
Civilization 6 will teach you, I think will teach people a lot about like
civilization
how
and how you should interact
civilizations
with people.
rise. And like I said, it's going back to like how things get reacted to, and how things can not always go the way you plan, and how,
Hmm.
you have to react to that, and how places, and how you have to improvise and adapt and overcome. So
So
that's what I like. That's the message. That's
that's
the
our
message
message.
this week is improvise, adapt, and overcome.
And
So
if any video games
be
companies
better.
want to pay us for this advertisement, you're more than welcome to.
Oh yeah.
Email us at gzenial@gmail.com. Leave a message or rate,
Let us
rate
know
us and
what
review
you want to
us.
hear.
Rate
Let
us.
us know what
Yeah, let us know what you want to hear.
our audience of 12 people out there. I want to hear from you, dozen people. What do you want to what do you want to hear us talk about? And tell your friends to listen to us if you're enjoying the podcast, because
And
we want to share our knowledge and opinions with everybody, because that's just the kind of people we are.
yeah, we're sharers. And on that note, have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the
Take
weather.
care. See you.